Yes, it's John G. Sutton here. Tales from the jails. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about celebrities in prison. Topical because actually they've got this Stonehouse documentary on, and tonight it should show the little bit about him being in prison and what an arsehole he was there, creeping round the governors, demanding that they play classical music in the workshops, basically being a total entitled tit. Yeah, but he did manage to persuade some of the staff that he was a person of some importance as opposed to being a sentenced prisoner, which is what he was. And you see, if you start treating celebrity prisoners with in a different manner than everybody else, it just doesn't work, because you get ordinary inmates saying, hang on a minute, why aren't I playing chess with the governor? You know, why don't I'm allowed to select the music that I personally want to hear in the workshop? See, you can't have one rule for one and one rule for another, in my humble opinion. So I would never do it. I would always say, yeah, you get the same as everybody else. Of course, with Stonehouse, it was complaining to the governor, complaining to the chief officers, whinging, whining, moaning, arsehole creeping little shithouse. Yeah? But if you just tell him straight, listen, you prisoner, go in cell. That works for me. You know, it didn't really work for John Stonehouse. And in fact, it didn't really work for me, because I got sent for by the chief officer. Trying to tell me how to lock people up. I think he'd forgotten what he was in the prison service for, to make sure that prisoners don't escape and that they're treated with due respect. But not him, no. Thought that he was there to be a butler to the likes of John Shithouse Stonehouse. It's a shame, really, because he's still got family going. I mean, they'll be aware of what a total tit he was. It's a good series, by the way. I watched the first one. I'm going to watch the rest at the weekend. My wife's taping them. Yeah, but the various celebrities that were in prison. Yeah, there was one who was an antiques expert at Strangeways when I was there. I won't mention any names, but you see him on TV. He's kind of orangey looking, and he was a bit of a celebrity at his time. He went on to be a bigger name, of course. Still is a big name. And he was all right, actually. I quite enjoyed him. He had a sense of humour. And he was the landing cleaner on E3, I believe it was, or E4. I forget where I was. I think it was E3. But anyway, he was quite a bit of fun and did the job nicely. And it got no trouble at all. I mean, that's the way to do your bird. If you've got to get in there and do it, you know, just have a nice and gently, and keep your head down. Various other celebrity inmates, of course, was George Davis. Yeah, do you remember George Davis? George Davis is innocent. They actually dug the cricket pitch up at Headingley in Leeds and poured oil all over the cricket pitch, protesting that George Davis was being incarcerated in Wormwood Scrubs because he'd been fitted up by the police. And George Davis was on C2 landing when I was one of the officers in charge of C2 landing, and he was a decent kind of guy, very funny. I found him very amusing. Lots of tall tales about being with the Cray twins and the Richardsons and all the gangs in the East End of London. He was one of the villains. He was a driver, actually. That's what he did. He drove for the gangs. Yeah, but he said he didn't do the crime that he was in prison for. Said that the police had taken his blood and put it at the scene of the crime, and see, they knew that he was bang at it, and of course we couldn't prosecute him because he couldn't get the evidence, so they fitted him up. And that's what George Davis said, and he was eventually released, but he didn't stay out long. It wasn't too long before he was back at it, you know, driving for the gangs on armed robberies, and he got himself some years. believe his wife left him after that. It was, it's not the way to live your life, is it? Because as for real celebrity criminals, there was Gordon Goody. Who was the brains behind the train robbery? Well, one of the brains behind the train robbery, the great train robbery. He was a great cook and a very nice gentleman. I thought, despite the fact that he robbed all this money, I thought he was amusing. He went on to run a bar in Spain, I believe, in Barcelona, somewhere like that, Malaga or somewhere. Anyway, but he got out of prison. They didn't serve all that time. That was just a scare tactic by the courts. You commit an offence like this, we'll bang you up for 30, 40 years. Because then they had Ronnie Biggs back into, Wandsworth? That's where he escaped from. He didn't want to die overseas in Brazil, did he? That's where he was. Never been to Brazil, but, if you're going to spend your life, you're an Englishman. But he wasn't no big name in the gangs, wasn't Ronnie Biggs. Ronnie Biggs was considered to be something of a non-entity. I've met, of course, big name villains. They are quite dangerous. Terry Sinclair, whose real name was Clark, I believe, Terence Clark. Yeah, he was a multi-millionaire New Zealand drug smuggler who had a yacht. He was the guy behind the handless corpse, where they cut the hands off the corpse and dump them into they call it Eccleston Delph, which was a former pit where they used to do mining, and it was full of water. They dumped the corpses in there, and divers who go there to practice scuba diving down, found these corpses at the bottom of the delph. It's about 30 foot deep, and on the bottom, can you imagine that as a surprise, eh? Oh, we'll just go down because there's cars down at the bottom and all that stuff, So they go diving around them and, oh, look, a nice car here, and oh, look, there's a handless corpse, and they'd smashed the face in as well, in an attempt to destroy all the teeth, so they couldn't get the records of who this was from the teeth. But generally speaking, celebrities in prison do manage somehow to get themselves treated differently. Jeffrey Archer, who was in prison, was straight away taken to an open prison. He only had about a day, I think it was, in Wandsworth or something like that. And then he was whisked off to a Category D open prison. And actually I have a letter from Jeffrey Archer, because he was supposedly interested in prison reform. And I was working with the Guardian's crime correspondent, Eric Allison, and we'd written a book. I'd written part of the book. It was called A Serious Disturbance, about the riots at Strangeways. You can get that on Amazon, by the way. You'll see it's Eric Allison, and inside the book you'll see a chapter written by me. It's called The Prison Officer's Tale. Hence Tales from the Jails, folks. Yeah. Clever guy, Eric Allison. He was a bit of a fraudster, but a brilliant writer, And so that's how I came to connect with Jeffrey Archer. Wrote to Jeffrey Archer, said, we're doing some work on prison reform. Would you like to contribute? Because he'd just come out of prison. He wrote back saying, I'm extremely busy, but I will have a look at this. And that was that. Anyway, celebrities in prison, they usually arsehole creep round the governors, and for some reason the governors like that, Anyway, I'm going to sing you a song now. It's not much of a song, actually. It's more of a shouting match from what I can gather. This is one of Paula's, who's a regular contributor here, favourite artists. It's Tom Waits, and this is called Fish in the Jailhouse. Believe it or not. Fish in the Jailhouse by Tom Waits, as ruined by me. And of course, I can't proceed without the song dinger, folks, yeah, because you've got to be warned, yeah. We've got very sensitive people here who are watching this, people like Larry, who lives in Rotherham. He starts to get upset if you don't warn him that you're going to sing first. So there we are. For whom the bell tolls, it tolls for Larry. Yeah, be warned. Here we are. Fish in the Jailhouse, as crucified by John G. Sutton. Peora Johnson told Dudlow Joe, I can't break out of any jail, you know. The bars are iron, the walls are stone, all I need for me is an old fish bone. They're serving fish in the jailhouse tonight. Serving fish in the jailhouse tonight. They're serving fish in the jailhouse. Fish in the jailhouse. Serving fish in the jailhouse tonight. Carina opal eye hammered shark. Steelhead salmon or a mudbank carp. I'll send one overside dull. I'll whittle the other side sharp. By Saturday night I'll be in Central Park, serving fish in the jailhouse tonight. All right, do you hear there? Serving fish in the jailhouse tonight. They're serving fish in the jailhouse. Fish in the jailhouse. Fish in the jailhouse tonight. Asked little Sonny Jackson or the 44 Kid or Whitefield Faraday what I did. From Mexico City down a Rolling Fork, from Natchez to Kenosha, New Dime to New York, serving fish in the jailhouse tonight. They're serving fish in the jailhouse. Fish in the jailhouse, oh boy. They're serving fish in the jailhouse tonight. Give me a piece of tortilla or chicken of the sea. I'm gonna fashion me a fishbone skeleton key. Yeah, Scully and Chads, I won't be late. You can bet your freedom I'm gonna eat my plate. Serving fish in the jailhouse tonight. There you go. That nearly destroyed me. Tales from the Jails. Get my book.